Hey y'all, welcome back to Read Aloud with Miss Godfrey. I am your host, Miss Godfrey, and we are going to start a new book together today, y'all. So if you remember from our last series, we read Schooled by Gordon Corman together, where we followed Capricorn Anderson and all of his crazy adventures. We're going to start today a new book. It is called Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. Kind of a strange title. When I first heard the title of this book, I was like, what? But it is a fantastic book. It is full of fun, and I know that you're going to love it. So it is written by an author named Dusti Bowling. That is a female. And the title doesn't give us a ton of information. You might think that it might involve like the desert in some way because it has to do with cactuses or cacti, but we'll see. So this book is pretty long. Like, it's not super thick, but it has a lot of chapters. And so there'll be some days where I combine chapters. For example, today I'm reading chapters 1 and chapter 2 to y'all. So there will be some videos where there's multiple chapters just so we can get through quicker. And that way we're not, spending 39 days reading the whole book. So without further ado, Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. Let's see what happens. And again, I'm reading chapters 1 and chapters 2 to you today. When I was little, a kid pointed at me on the playground and shouted, "Her arms fell off," and then ran away screaming in terror to his mom, who had to cuddle him on her lap and rub his head for like 10 minutes to get him to calm down. I think up until then, I hadn't thought about the idea that my arms must have actually fallen off at some point in my life. I had never really thought about not having arms at all. My missing arms weren't an issue for me or for my parents. I never heard either one of them say, "Oh no, Avon can't possibly do that because that's only for armed people." And they never said, "Poor Avon is so helpless without arms." And they definitely never said, "Or maybe Maven can do that one day, if she ever grows arms." They always said things like, "You'll have to do this differently from other people, but you can manage." Or they would say things like, "I know this is challenging, keep trying." And things like, "You're capable of anything, Avon." I had never realized just how different I was until the day that horrible kid shouted about my arms having fallen off. For the first time, I lost my spot. For the first time, I found myself aware of my total armlessness, and I guess I felt like I was sort of naked all of a sudden. So I too ran to my mom, and she scooped me up and carried me away from the park, allowing my tears and my snot to soak her shirt. As she drove us home that day, I sat whimpering in my car seat and asked her what had happened to my arms and why they had fallen off. She told me they hadn't fallen off, that I was just born like that. I asked her how I could get some new ones. She said that I couldn't. I wailed in despair, and she told me to stop crying because having arms was totally overrated. I didn't know what overrated meant at the time because, like I said, I was really little, and so was my brain. I kind of figured it out over the next few days, though, because my parents were constantly saying things like, "Coloring this picture with my hand is okay, but if I could only color it with my feet like Avon, now that would be fantastic." And they would say things like, "Eating spaghetti with my arms is just so boring. I wish I could eat it with my feet." And the only person I know who can pick their nose with their toes is Avon. She sure is a special little girl. Dad even went as far as to ask Mom if there were any arm removal services in the area. Growing up, I could do most everything everyone else with arms could do. Eating cereal, brushing my teeth, brushing my hair, getting dressed, and yes, even wiping my own bottom. Sounds interesting. I know you're instantly wondering how I do it, and maybe I'll tell you later. Maybe. Until then, you'll just have to live in suspense. Sure, these things take a lot longer for me. Sometimes they take a lot longer. Sometimes I have to use a special tool like a hook or a strap or something like that. And every now and then I want to scream in frustration and kick a pillow until the stuffing comes out because it's taken me 20 minutes to get my pants buttoned. But I can button my pants. I think I can do all these things because my parents have always encouraged me to figure things out on my own. Well, more like made me figure things out on my own. I suppose if they had always done everything for me, I would be helpless without them. But they didn't, and I'm not. And now that I'm 13 years old, I don't need much help with anything. True story. When I started kindergarten, the kids were a little weirded out by my lack of armage. I got asked just about every day what had happened to my arms, as well as a billion other silly questions like, how do I make farting noises with my armpits when I don't have arms or hands? or pits even. And how do I play dress up? Which I tried showing them and ended up with a poofy pink tutu thing stuck around my head for about 5 minutes before the teacher finally noticed and helped me pull it down to my waist. I got so tired of telling them the same boring story about being born without arms that I started just making stuff up. It was stinking hilarious. I knew from the first moment I told a girl my arms had burned off in a fire that I had found a great hobby, making up stories. I loved the way her eyes grew wide with shock and the way her voice went all high-pitched with excitement as she asked me a bunch more questions about my charred arms. She said, "What kind of fire accident?" And I told her, "A wild forest fire burning out of control." She said, "Where?" And I said, "In the mountains of Tanzania." I honestly don't even know where Tanzania was or if it had any mountains, but I think I heard the name in an episode of Scooby-Doo or something. She said, "How old are you?" Or "How old were you?" And I said, "Just a helpless baby. My mom barely rescued me in time. She pulled me from my burning crib and raced out of our flaming village, leaving a trail of fire all the way down the mountain as my arms burned to a crisp. They looked like 2 pieces of bacon by the time we got to the village hospital." Another kid standing nearby said, "Cooked or uncooked?" So I kind of traumatized her, and I had to have a meeting with my parents and the teacher later about my story that I told. My parents squinted their eyes and pursed their lips and nodded their heads as the teacher told them, Avon told another child that her arms were burned off in a wildfire in the mountains of Tanzania." She peered at them over her glasses, frowning. She also mentioned something about bacon. I had never seen such a serious look on my parents' faces before. Like they were concentrating so hard on being serious, their heads might explode if they blinked. They said seriously that they would talk to me about it, and they shook the teacher's hand very seriously and gave me a serious look as we seriously walked out of the school. But I could tell they weren't mad, because all the way home, one of them would softly snort, and then the other would giggle, then the other would shake from laughing, but trying not to laugh out loud, and on and on and on like that all the way home. They later told me just to be truthful so I did not upset any other kids. And I did that for a long time. But then one day in 5th grade, we had a new kid come to our school. By the way, I had gone to the same school since kindergarten, so all my friends knew that I was just born with no arms. When I sat down at lunch with this kid, he said, "Whoa, what happened to your arms?" All of my friends were looking at me, and what can I say? It exploded out of me like an overfilled water balloon. I told him this crazy story about how I rescued a puppy that had been tied to the train tracks just in time before a train nearly ran it over. Just in time for the puppy, but not for my poor flattened arms. You should have seen the look on this kid's face. It was priceless. My best friend Emily burst out laughing, and my friend Kayla spit chocolate milk across the table. The new kid realized it was a joke and started laughing too. Pretty soon, everyone was constantly asking me, "Hey Avon, where'd your arms go?" And I would have a new story to tell. Over time, my stories got more and more ridiculous. Alligator wrestling in the Everglades in Florida, freak roller coaster accidents, skydiving trips gone wrong. I made my stories as ridiculous as possible so that people would always know that I was joking. I grew up with those kids. I never felt out of place or anything like that. My armlessness wasn't strange or weird to them because, like I said, I'd always gone to the same school. I never imagined my parents would make me leave. I never thought they would make me move all the way to Arizona and go to a new school right after starting 8th grade. Then again, I never imagined I would save the Old West, perform for an audience in the desert, and solve a mystery. You'd be surprised at all I'm capable of, though, even without arms. Alright, so that was chapter 1. So Avon obviously is a kid that does not have arms and has a lot of fun kind of playing jokes on people about that. So we're going to read chapter 2 and see what happens next. The day Dad told me he wanted to apply for a job as a theme park manager in Arizona, I thought it was quite possible that aliens had taken over his brain. Either aliens or the government. I knew from my great-grandma the government was capable of dreadful things. She was always saying stuff like, "If only the public knew what the government was up to, there would be a revolution." And she would pumping her spotted, wrinkled fist in the air. I wasn't completely sure why an 86-year-old woman who lived in a trailer in Kansas was the only person privy to this top secret information, but she clearly was. So I wouldn't put it past the government to insert some kind of mind control chip into Dad's brain and force him to run a crumbling theme park in the desert. My parents discussed it with me one night over a dinner of buttered noodles, my favorite meal. Ooh, I love buttered noodles. Oh man, I just realized they deliberately buttered me up with buttered noodles. So I got an email from a guy by the name of Joe Kavanaugh, Dad said over his noodles. He owns a place called Stagecoach Pass. What's that? I said, slurping my noodle. It's this Western-themed amusement park in Arizona. I guess he found my resume on one of the job sites where I'd posted it. Anyway, he invited me to apply for the position of general manager at the park. Well, he must have been impressed with your resume, Mr. Big-Time Restaurant Manager, said Mom. Well, said Dad, I'm not really sure how managing a restaurant relates to managing an entire theme park, but I guess a huge part of their business is the steakhouse there, so that's probably why he contacted me. Well, are you going to apply? I asked. It does sound interesting, said Dad. I scowled. Arizona is really far away. Don't forget you were born there, Sheebs, Dad said. We spent a lot of time there during your adoption, and we really liked it. We even thought it might be a great place to retire one day. The winter was so beautiful, warm and sunny. I'm sick of icy winters. Well, what's the summer like? I asked. Mom grimaced. I've heard it's like the surface of the sun. It could be an exciting adventure. Dad wagged his eyebrows at me. Swimming and soccer all year long. I glared at my noodles. I don't think I want to play soccer on the surface of the sun. Come on, said Dad. You're such a pro, you could play soccer anywhere. Stop trying to entice me, I said. You haven't even applied yet. Well, if it's okay with you, I'd like to. On the one hand, the thought of leaving Kansas and the only home I could ever remember sounded worse than anything. On the other, Dad had lost his job nearly 6 months earlier when the restaurant he'd been managing went out of business. He really needed this. It's okay with me, I mumbled, feeling like I might cry. Dad applied, and then he and Mom were invited to go to Arizona for an interview and to check the place out. And then they were invited to stay and run the theme park together. Turns out it was more of a two-person job. And so we sold off a ton of our furniture and donated the junk we didn't need and packed the rest of our belongings into a giant pod that would magically disappear from Kansas and magically reappear in Arizona a week later. We drove our old car over 1,000 miles westward across the country, praying the entire time that we would not break down. We managed to make it in one single long day without stopping in a hotel until we got to Phoenix. By the time we arrived, Dad's eyes looked like atomic fireballs, and Mom's hair looked like she had taken a spin in a hairspray cyclone. Early the next morning, we drove by the giant covered wagon with Stagecoach Pass printed on it in large brown block letters, and I saw the park for the first time. Then I knew for sure the government and mind control trips were involved. So that is chapter 2, boys and girls. We have rocked through 2 chapters today. That's awesome. Hope you're loving this book so far. I will continue to read a chapter a day, and sometimes, like I said, more than one chapter until we get through it. I hope you're loving it so far, and I will see you next time for chapter 3. Bye.